Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to the coverage of the amazing Chess Olympiad in 2024 that we have followed now in the last 2 weeks. As promised, I'm going to cover now many great games that we haven't analyzed so far because the tournament was really fast. You couldn't really catch up with everything that happened in the event, and now we're taking it slow. Now we're going to analyze the most spectacular games played by Gukesh, Aydin, by Nodirbek Abdusattorov, by Pragrananda, by Vidit Santosh Gurati, by Magnus Carlsen. So now all of the tournament is over. We'll have a beautiful time analyzing really the most incredible games from this event. And we're starting now with India's hero, Gukesh, who played on the first board, had an incredible performance on the first board. Gukesh, out of the 10 rounds that he played, gained 8 wins and 2 draws only. He had a rating performance about 3,000 rating points, and he gained 30 points in this event and is now the 5th best chess player in the world. Look at this, Gukesh now on the 5th place. Arjun Ergaisi in the top 3. Hikaru Nakamura, we have to mention, is not so active in classical time format chess, so I can expect in the next couple of months maybe Arjun or Gukesh to be on the 2nd place behind Magnus Carlsen. And we know also that Magnus is not so often playing anymore this classical event, so maybe in the next year we could have a wild situation where maybe Gukesh or Arjun is on the 1st place and maybe Gukesh or Arjun is on the 2nd place. So I wish them all of the best. They're so young, they're so incredible, and they were really India's hero. Also, we have to mention Pragrananda with an awesome performance, and also Vidit Santosh Gurati. I think he was the wall on the 4th board. He was unbeatable and had really also great performance in this amazing event. So we're starting now with an amazing gameplay by Gukesh against Aydin Suleymanli from Azerbaijan in a beautiful Giuoco Pianissimo of the Italian game. Put your seatbelts on. Again, a wild game, a wild performance here by Gukesh. So with the white pieces, Gukesh opened with the move e4. We have here e5 by Aydin Suleymanli, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, the Italian game. And now we have the Giuoco Pianissimo, the normal variation with the bishop to c5. Bishop to g5. Gukesh spices up immediately the position with this dangerous pin by the bishop against the knight, but usually black has this idea. Then h6, bishop to h4 and g5 kicks away the bishop. And now in some lines, I've seen it before, after d6 in a normal setup, black can go even into some wild lines with king to f8, king to g7, not immediately, but as a strategic plan, because sometimes you don't want to castle immediately here into your weakened structure. Sometimes I've seen it, as I said, king to f8, king to g7, and then even in some lines you could start to push the pawns and maybe put more pressure against this loose bishop on g3. So far here Aydin Suleymanli plays a calm line with d6. We have c3, a5, and now knight from b to d2. Simply normal development, and now of course preparing kingside castling. We have now bishop to a7, a3 with the preparation to play the move b4, and believe me or not, now already comes the critical moment of the game. Here Aydin Suleymanli played a bad move, knight to h5, and this move is tempting, of course, because you are attacking the bishop on g3, but this is a huge mistake because you see you're lining up the knight against the queen here. The queen is now targeting indirectly the knight, and Gukesh spots now immediately, of course, the tactic plays now a beautiful knight takes e5. Great move. Let's see now options what black should have played instead of knight to h5. Queen to e7 is an equal game. Good game, I think, here for Aydin Suleymanli for sure. If he would have played this move, then after something like casting, you can play a normal bishop to g4 or something, and you are having a good time. I think you have even the flexibility in some lines, maybe even to castle queenside in this position. So nothing spectacular, I would say, also here in white's position. Or you can even play, as I said, even this maneuver now with king to f8 and then h5 and similar stuff. Or you can play normal bishop to d7. Casting even is a possibility here. Still, I would say an equal game now for both sides. But knight to h5 is a bad move, and Gukesh punishes this move immediately with incredible tactical sequence. He plays now knight takes e5, and what should you do? If you play here knight takes e5, this is not working because after bishop to e5, d takes e5, and queen to h5, you have gained the pawn. Here the pawn on f7 is weak, and now you have to castle. You're running into some tactics. If you castle, then the h6 pawn is weak, so the position is suddenly collapsing here for black. So that's why after knight to e5, Aydin Suleymanli had to play now knight takes g3. This is the way to go. And after bishop to f7, you see now black has lost now the privilege of castling. We have now king to f8, and now knight to g6, the beautiful fork against the king and the rook. And now Aydin Suleymanli again doesn't react correctly. He has now the option immediately to play king to f7, which is, I think, here the best way for black to proceed. And then after knight to h8, okay, you see now the difference in their lines. After knight to h8 and king to h8 and something like f takes g3, look at this. This move f takes g3 is now very important for Gukesh maybe to play then kingside castle and then open up the f file. But now f takes g3 in this particular position, if Aydin would have taken the bishop on f7 immediately, is not so good actually here for white, because here after something like king to e7 and you're trying maybe the move d4, actually black can go with knight takes d4, and after c takes d4 with queen to d4 would then go into this aggressive line where the square on f2 is now weak, and suddenly white has also a tough time to defend. So that's why here, after instead of this move f takes g3, white would be pretty much forced to play h takes g3, and still white is better here. I'm not saying that he's not, but f takes g3 is a very important motif, because now after d4 you can castle, and now the f file is not open, and black can secure the king on g7 and has a pretty solid position. But after move knight to g6 that Gukesh played here, Aydin plays now, instead of king to f7, he plays now king to g7 and loses now a very important tempo, and that's now huge mistake, because here Gukesh takes with f takes g3. Now it's possible to play f takes g3. As we said, the f file has to be open. Now we have king to f7, knight to h8. You see Aydin lost now a beautiful tempo, and now after move d4, now suddenly the whole concept with knight takes d4 is not working, because here white can castle king side, and you see now the king is not stuck in the center. You will get an extra tempo after something like king to e7, c takes d4. Okay, now you can take, but it's a different story. Black's king is of course in the center of the board, white's king is perfectly fine, the queen is coming into the game. You can grab of course a couple of pawns, but who cares? After move e5 here, the position is open, the position is collapsing for black. Very tense position now, and I think black is getting destroyed. But you see now after move d4, now this knight takes d4, queen to d4 is not working, because you have this intermediate king side castling, and now black doesn't have any more good moves. I would say black is having a tough time, because Aydin Suleymanli lost now a very important tempo with the move king to g7 instead of taking immediately the bishop on f7. So now he plays king to g7, many moves he played now with the king. Now finally Gukesh castles, and you see now what's the idea about his tactical sequence. He has now opened the f file. He has now also locked out both of these minor pieces by black, although black gained now two minor pieces for the rook. These pieces are simply out of game. The bishop on a7 is not participating in the game at all. Knight on c6 is also stuck here. Bishop on c8 doesn't have a good activity at all, and white has a flexible possibility to maybe reroute the knight to c4, knight to e3, knight to f5, or searching for different routes, maybe even knight to g4 in some lines, knight to f6. So you're searching then basically for the best course for the knight. So here, after castling bishop to d7, you see two minor pieces of blacks are neutralized. King to h1. Gukesh improves calmly here the position of the king. Rook to f8, and now queen to e2, connecting now the rooks. We have now rook to f1, rook takes f1, queen to e8, and now queen to f3, simply putting more pressure here on the f file. And now you see Aydin is again forced to play a passive move, queen to e7, controlling now of course these three squares, because if the queen comes somehow on the 6th, 7th, or 8th rank, then the position is again bad here for black. So that's why he's protecting the position for a while. We have now knight to c4, bishop to e6, and now comes this maneuver, knight to e3, with the idea to hop with the knight on f5. Knight to d8, now comes knight to f5, bishop to f5, and now a great move by Gukesh, e takes f5. Great stuff, because he's controlling now the knight. The knight cannot get on e6, and there is now of course the huge threat of f6, playing the fork against the queen and the king. So that's why again Aydin is forced to play a passive move. He has to lock now the position on the square f6. Gukesh continues obviously with the beautiful rook to e1, and as I said, there's nothing that can be done here. Even if you try here knight to f7, then this one is weak, and also we can play rook to e6 immediately. So again, too many options here for white. Look at this, bishop still stuck here, cannot participate in the game. Queen is also stuck, so you have to now step back. We can even push, I think, the pawn to f6 here. So again, game over here for Aydin. So after rook to e1, we have bishop to b6, we have g4 supporting now this very progressive pawn on f5. We have now the move c5 and now d5. Here Gukesh plays another great move, locks out further simply the dark with bishop. That's why Aydin tries c4. We have now rook to e4 going for the pawn, bishop to c5, and now another great move, a4, which is not allowing here black to play some maybe dangerous ideas like b5 and then b4. Black would love, I think, now finally to somehow get the bishop into the game with b4, b5, b4, and maybe then to have some chances, but now it's not working because, again, Gukesh neutralizes the position on the queen side and has now a solid position on that side of the board. Bishop to a7, even if you try again knight to f7, as we said, this is not working. Queen to rook to e6 kicks away the queen, f6, queen to f5, the queen sneaks in here, and there's again too much pressure against black's king. So that's why after a4 we have bishop to a7, queen to e2, h5, and now rook to e7. Now finally the rook is through. Now the rook comes, of course, with a dangerous threat. King to f8, rook to e8, new check, king to f7, and now another great move, I would say, here by Gukesh. He plays now g takes h5. He creates now for himself a beautiful passer, a new pass pawn. Here g4 has to be played by Aydin Suleymanli, because if you try here queen to f5, then you get checkmated immediately, because this pawn is controlling now the g6 square. So that's why after g takes h5, g4, h6 here by Gukesh. Gukesh calculated everything in a good way. He has now this progressive pawn and allows now queen to f5, but now he plays a beautiful h7, a great move. If you pick up, of course, this pawn with the queen, then rook to e7 traps simply the queen. If you play queen to b1 like Aydin played here, now Gukesh, as I said, calculated everything in a calm way. Queen takes e1, rook to e1, and now in this position Aydin Suleymanli resigned, because there's nothing that can be done. Even if you try something like king to g7, then you simply promote, decoy now the king to the 8th rank, and now you deliver a check, you pick up the knight, and in the rook versus bishop endgame and an extra pawn here for white, obviously this is completely winning here for Gukesh. So great game, great attack here by Gukesh in the Giuoco Pianissimo of the Italian Opening. He realized this beautiful tactical shot, locked out two minor pieces of black's out of game, and then eventually started to have an attack on the king side. Incredible performance. I watched also a beautiful video where Magnus Carlsen stood behind Gukesh, and he watched now this game, and Magnus Carlsen was like, good moves here by Gukesh. He was like, he was very, I think, impressed by Gukesh's position at that moment. So great video, I think, also. But you see, Gukesh is now the new prince, I think, I would say, in chess, because usually we considered maybe in the past maybe Alireza Firouzja to be the one. Now Gukesh has a great chance to be even the world champion in chess. We know that he's playing the championship against Dingler, and now he's also much higher, for instance, than Alireza Firouzja when it comes to the current ratings, gained many rating points. So now he has a great path, I think, to be the one after Magnus Carlsen. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the Giuoco Pianissimo of the Italian game. If you want to see some other games that we have analyzed before from this event, check out our coverage so far with some amazing games played by Gukesh, Arjun Ergaisi, and many more. And if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.